So this is the desires we want to fulfill through another person, with other people. Third house is the desires, the things I want for myself. And this is a willful house. If you want to know the difference between the self and the ego, realize this. The first house is not the ego. It's the self. It's the truthful identity. The most egoistic house in the chart is really the third. It's the things where we say, I want it, it's mine. The thing is, the Kama houses and also the sixth have a binding effect where we say, when we do this, I did it, it's mine. It's the difference between Dharma and Kama. It's been talked about in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna showed up on the battlefield to fulfill his Dharma and to do what was right, he said, I don't want to do it. It was his Dharma, it was his truthful identity as a warrior to actually do this. The reason he failed is because he stopped seeing the truth. And instead of acting from a place of Dharma, he acted from a place of likes and dislikes. Kama. I like it. I don't like it. I'm going to do what I like and what I want, not what I know is right. When we do what we know is right, we're acting from a place of Dharma. And each one of these ascendants has its own dharmic frame, where when they perform these actions, they're acting in harmony with their innate nature, just like the nature of fire to burn and to give heat. That's the nature, that's the innate nature of a Scorpio, is to come from the place that's the what? What nature is Scorpio? Masculine or feminine nature of which planet? Feminine Mars. So their nature is to do what? What would that be? Feminine Mars. Try to figure that one out. Any Scorpios in here? Whoa, I better watch it. Huh? Protect what? Huh? Going through the swamp. Wow, they'd love to hear that. Scorpios would love that. Sounds so romantic. I'm protecting you as we go through the swamp. Yeah, I mean all of it. Yeah, it's all right. You can really take the planet. Mars is about strength. He wants to strengthen something. He strengthens us externally through the nature of Aries, this external, like physically, taking on physical challenges, having the courage to just take things on and deal with the ups and downs, because Mars rules the first and the eighth house from Aries. So Mars has the courage to endure the painful setbacks and separations and get up and do it again. This is Aries, the power of action. Scorpio is there to strengthen our emotions, to strengthen our feelings and our vulnerabilities, our fears, because we have a lot of emotional fear, and Mars is like, I have the courage to take this on. And Mars, so this is the nature of Scorpio. The innate quality, the innate truth of Scorpio is to do that and to eventually be a warrior of light and not advocate and not sort of romanticize the darkness is the problem with Scorpio. Once they orient that very emotionally courageous nature with a path of righteousness, then it's incredibly transformative. Then that nature to strengthen the emotions gives them enormous power. But they're going to try to come from that framework as a matter of truthful identity. And it's not egoistic when they do it. It would be egotistical if a Gemini tried to do it on some level, because Scorpio rules the sixth house from Gemini, and it's a cruel house. That doesn't mean it's necessarily egotistical when they try to strengthen the emotions, but what it means is that quality of life often doesn't resonate well with a Scorpio. With a Gemini person, for instance, because it's a very inconjunct point in the zodiac. This is why you have these houses that are called Dishtanas and stuff like that, because Scorpio shares pretty much nothing in common with Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, it's Rajasic, it's mutable, like you talked about the modality. Scorpio is fixed, water, ruled by Mars. All of these things just feel difficult for the individual. That doesn't mean that they don't have to deal with these things in life. They do. But often what happens is the dharmic nature and the truthful nature of each ascendant comes out through the planets that rule these dharma houses. And the other ones are things that often just disturb it. So Gemini people have to be careful of getting into really emotionally complicated, tumultuous emotional relationships, because it really takes them away from their nature, their genius, which is the things that are related to Gemini, as an example. Does that make sense? And they get very taken off course, and when they get in that situation, will often act willfully and through the ego, because it's not really conducive with their dharmic path. But for instance, a Pisces. Scorpio's the 9th house from Pisces, so they're all over it. You see? You see how that would work? So we have this relationship. The 7th house is the relationships that we want to fulfill with others. And then once we do that, once we get into this intimate relationship with people, which is the 7th house, we have all these fears. Let's face it, we're all a little afraid of each other. Not here, but go out in the world and you're just kind of walking around and somebody comes up, hey, how's it? You're like, I don't know you. We're interacting with people is, we have a lot of aversions on some level. And often it's through relationships that we become aware of how we basically have no control over anything. We think we're solid. We think we're that we've made some sort of connection, and then it ends, and we're devastated. Now, of course, we get older, we kind of forget how painful our early relationships were and things like that. It's funny. I'll talk to clients. They're like, "Yeah, well, I don't know. It's not really like that now." It's like it's not like that now because you've been devastated enough times. But when we were younger, it's just devastating. Think of your early romantic encounters and just all those delusions get shattered. It's just crushing. And so it's really through dealing with other people and our interactions that we become aware that we have really no control over anything. And the 8th house is really that repository of our deepest fears and the realization that we have no control. It's the house of death and those things that we realize we have no control over. And for instance, we have all these fears and vulnerabilities of getting involved. How many people are in relationship? I'm not saying people here, but just think in general. How many people are in relationships and they're in a partnership with someone not because they really love them and it's this loving, giving relationship, but because, well, at least it's better than being alone. At least it's better than nothing. At least all these things we click off. It's just all just fear-based. It's like, why don't you just be alone? Because there's so many reasons why we wind up in this kind of pickle, this kind of 6th, 7th, 8th house pickle. Our relationships are so complicated, and we have a bad relationship, and it's like, okay, I ain't doing that for a while, and we're totally afraid of even doing it again because it's so heavy and it's so transformative, yet can be so painful. So this 7th, 8th house transition here is big. That's why I say this is really some of the biggest stuff that we do. Most of our energy gets really put into this, and it really determines a lot of what happens later in the 9, 10, 11, 12th house part, which has to do with our teachings. Do you all understand what I'm saying about the 7th and 8th house transition?